everybody, it's Monday, start of another week, and welcome to RTO, as it's going to be known as now. So it's still Iain from Wrangling the Obscure, but under a new name called RTO, just shortened it down. You've heard of ELO, now you've got RTO. Another busy week for us, so this week we're kicking off with a request from someone a few weeks ago. Asked, are you doing an XTC? Yes, we are, and we're doing it today. Before I started this, I only owned about three XTC albums. So to do this, I had to go onto Spotify and find the others, which are all on there, apart from two which I found on YouTube. So some of this was new listening for me. So this is a very honest ranking. I've only listened to some of the albums a few times, so if I get it wrong with you big fans, some of this is all new to me, but put in the comments below if you put your order. I'm sure we'll get a debate going about it. So XTC were formed around 1972 by Andy Partridge and Colin Moulding, who are sort of in the backbone of the band. Their music styles changed. It was post-punk. When I first heard them, which would have been about 1980, Sergeant Rock, they were sort of still pretty punky. And they went into more pop, and they've done psychedelia. On the whole, what I've heard the stuff I hadn't heard, they've done some pretty good stuff. But of course, like most bands, they've done some stuff that I just couldn't get on with. So the main people obviously are Colin Moulding and Andy Partridge, but along the years they've had Terry Chambers on the drums. Colin was vocals and bass guitar. Andy Partridge was vocals and guitar. Barry Andrews was keyboards for a little while, and then Dave Gregory also has done keyboards, guitars, backing vocals, etc. So we've got 14 albums to look at. So we're going to start off at number 14. This is their debut album from 1978, White Music, released on the 20th of January 1978. It was a bit, I've never heard this album, so this was the first time I heard it, and I found it very punky in places, a bit weird in places, and some of it was just unlistenable. So let's have a look at the tracks. First track, Radio's in Motion. Yes, it is a very good track, very punky sound. I did like that one, my favourite track actually on the album. Then we get Cross Wires. Now this was so disjointed I couldn't listen to it properly. I've listened to it 4 times, just that track, and I still can't really get into it. Then we got This Is Pop. This is another really, really good punky song. Nothing wrong with that one at all. Very, very good. Then we get this short little ditty called Do What You Do. Could have been a bit longer, but it's a really good track. Then we get another great track, The Statue of Liberty. Really good, and it did actually show the potential that we were going to get from this band. Listening to that, I can see where the sound actually came from. Really good, solid track. Then they do a cover version of All Along the Watchtower. Pretty good cover of it, not bad. I've heard better, but pretty solid. Then we get a track called Into the Atom Age. When I listened to this, I found it sounding so much like the Boomtown Rats. But there's nothing wrong with this track. I do like the Boomtown Rats, so I like this track as well. Then we have a song called I'll Set Myself on Fire. It's okay. I didn't really get on with this track. I just found it a bit too weird for me. Then we have a track called I'm Buggered. Another one of these post-punk songs. But the keyboard just, to me, didn't seem to fit with the song, which is a shame. Then we have a track called Newtown in a Furnished Cage. Another short song, very good, but just too short. Okay, then we get Spinning Top. I'm sorry, I just couldn't get on with this one. Again, I kept listening to it, keep going back to it. No, I just couldn't get on with it. And it ends up with a track called Neon Shuffle. Pretty solid track. Again, one of them tracks you could see where XTC were going to be going. So on the whole, not a bad start to their first album. Some really good solid tracks. Okay, then moving on. Number 13 is another album that came out in 1978. Their second, released on the 6th of October. Go To. You get much of the same as you did on the debut album. There's some really good tracks on this again. The first one, Mechanic Dancing. Very interesting keyboards on this, but good. It's a bit dancey in places for that sort of, the 1978 dance disco scene. Pretty good. Then we get Battery Brides, another good solid track. Really good. Then we get Buzz City Talking. This is a track I think that XTC sound, that very unique XTC sound, was starting to bud. Really good track. Considering that was made in 1978, it was quite hip for its time. The technology they were using, pretty good. Then we get Crowded Room. Oh, I love this. The start of it's a bit like Madness, and it's got some good guitar work. I do like it. It is quite a fun track. Then we get The Rhythm. Another solid track. It's not outstanding, but it goes along with that sort of period in their career. Really good. Then we get Red. This is quite, what I say, poppy for the time. Not now, because it would be now retro, but for the time, Red was quite poppy. Then we get a track called Beat Town. Great drums on this. It's really different. You got an interesting keyboard again, and a nice guitar that comes in and out of it. Really good track. Then we get Life Is Good in the Greenhouse. Strange beat and an arrangement, but listenable. I didn't flick over it. I was going, oh, this is a bit strange, and I kept listening more. Where's it going? And in the end, I ended up listening to it all the first time. I thought, well, it may be strange, but it's good enough to listen to. Then we get Jumping Into the Gomorrah. Great bass line and keyboards in this. This is another little post-punk ditty. Really solid track. Then we get My Weapon. This is quite funky, but not very good. I'm not very into that track at all. Then we get Super Tough. This has got a terrific bass line. Very retro now, but at the time, again, it was one of them tracks that was different for the time, so it was really good. And then we get I Am the Audience. Another solid track. Nothing wrong with that one. Then Are You Receiving Me? Good track. Tell it's from the late 70s though, because it's got that distinctive beat, and it's a bit scar in places. So if you like the beat and specials, it's got that little tones to it. But again, on the whole, I really enjoyed listening to that for the first time. Okay, coming in at number 12 is an album that I had got. It's from 1983. Their 6th album, released on the 30th of August 1983, Mama. Really good album this. I've had this a few years now, and so I can tell you a little bit more about this one. Beating of the Hearts. I love this track. It's a bit poppy, a bit about Middle Eastern strings, that really Eastern sound that I like. Great track, really enjoy that track. Then we get Wonderland. This is more of an electronic song from that sort of era. Very pleasant track though. Very clever what they were doing with the electronics. They're very underrated. They did a lot. They put a lot of different sounds and created a new sort of genre. I think there's a few bands that actually say that XTC influenced them. So they did. They have got their place in music. Then we get a track called "Love on a Farmer's Boy Wage." I think this is one of the first indie rock songs ever, in my opinion. It's so indie, it's unreal. But indie rock didn't really exist in 1983. But it's a really good track. It's my favourite track on the album. It's one of my favourite tracks by the band. So it is a very solid track. Then we get Great Fire. This is another great track. Very distinctive sound of XTC on this one. It's that thing. It does what it says on the tin. You listen to it, the first thing you notice, that's XTC. Oh, and the throat's going. Just bear with me 2 seconds. That's better. Right, next track, Deliver Us from the Elements. This is a really weird, eerie trick. Very experimental for the time. Again, they were not afraid of doing this. So yeah, another solid track. Then we get Human Alchemy. Another of those great XTC arrangements. Andy Partridge just knew what he wanted. Again, he was very underrated musician, very underrated. Full stop. The whole band is. They are terrific musicians, and were not frightened to do anything. So Human Alchemy was just one of them tracks. Then we get Ladybird. This is quite a slow jazzy number. Got some really nice piano in this. I do like that track as well. Then we get In a Loving Memory of a Name. Very catchy tune. This is quite radio fan friendly. Very solid. And then we get Me and the Wind. This is an interesting song from the album. The percussion's great. There's the rest of it. I've never really got into it. Then we get Funk Pop Roll. It's okay. Not my favourite track on the album, but it's an album that I really enjoy and I do listen to it quite a lot. Okay, then coming in at number 11 is their fifth album from 1982, released on the 12th of February of 1982. It was their first double album. Now, this album I've never heard, but it's that same old story of double albums. There's just too many songs on this. If they'd have taken the best off both albums and just put out the one album, I'd rank this even higher, because the tracks that are good on are excellent. But it's the ones that a bit, what I call a bit filler, a bit. I don't know what, if you're going to put a double album out, make sure that all the tracks are good. Not all the tracks are good on this. But we'll have a look at them anyway. First track, Runaways. Great track. Love the drums in this. When I first I'd never heard this album much. I'd only heard a couple of bits off it. But this track really, I took to this track straight away. Ball and Chain, I've heard that one, big hit. Another good track, very radio friendly. Then it's got one of my favourite songs by the band, Senses Working Overtime. Okay, everybody knows this one. I love it. Really, really good. Next track, Jason and the Argonauts. Oh, this is brilliant. Good poppy track. From that 80s thing, a really good track, and it's become my second favourite track on the album. Then we get Our Thugs in Our House, very solid track, but it reminds me of the Dexys Midnight Runners, but there's nothing wrong with that. Then we get one of the first tracks that is a bit boring, Yacht Dance. That doesn't do anything for me. Next track, All of a Sudden It's Too Late. Another of them tracks that just doesn't do anything. It's 5 minutes 21 long, and it's about 4 minutes too long. It just doesn't nothing for me. Melt the Guns. It's okay. It's just too long again. 6 minutes 34. Far too long. That's one thing this band are not good at, doing long tracks. Stick to your 2 or 3, no more than 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes at max. Leave the long tracks to the experts. When we get Leisure, again it's a quirky track with a nice beat, but just too long, goes on too long. It's Nearly Africa. No. Another Ratch song that shouldn't have been on the album, I'm afraid. I might be upsetting a few of you fans out there, but I just don't get that track at all. Knuckle Down, it's okay. Fly on the Wall, oh, very ordinary, awful. Down in the cockpit, sorry, very ordinary again. 5 of 27, it's just too long. An English Roundabout, very much like the band The Beat, so it's not too bad. And the last track, Snowman, not very good at all. So out of all them tracks, I would say there's only about 6 or 7 that are excellent. Put that on one album, and as I said at the beginning of this, you've got a solid album, and I would have probably ranked it even higher. Okay then, coming in at number 7 is their 7th album. Came out 15th of October 1984, The Big Express. It's a concept autobiography concept album inspired from where the band come from, Swindon, and its railway system and the Swindon Works. Great concept. Not a bad album. I'd never heard this album. Never heard it existed. So this was a new one on me. First track, Wake Up. Really good start to the album. Very solid track. Really thought it was a good track. All the You Pretty Girls. You can compare this to the Talking Heads, I think. It's in that sort of vein. Very good. Shake Up Your Donkey. What a noise. It just really annoyed me. You know when you listen to them tracks that sometimes that just irritate you to the bone? That's one of them tracks. Then we get Seagulls Screaming, Kiss Her, Kiss Her. Again, one of them unusual XTC arrangements, but I did like it. Very solid track. Then we get The World Is Over. This is a really good pop song, I think, for the time. That 80s sound, very catchy. One of them tunes that you just can't get out your head. Then we get a track called Everyday Story of a Small Town even. Like this, quite rocky for this band. One of the best tracks on the album. Then I brought myself a Ladybird. Can't even read computer writing. This is one of them XTC oddities again, but good. I can't deny this. They have some weird crap out, but I do like it. I do like the weirdness and the obscure, of course, which all fits into the channel. Then we get Rain of Blows. Great track. This is quite rocky. We've got harmonica in it, nice guitars. Yeah, solid track. Then we got You're the Wish. This is a mouthful. You're the wish you are I had, which I had. So I'll start again. Take 3. You're the wish you are I had. Yeah. It's a bit continuation of the last track. But I can't pronounce. What a mouthful to pronounce. So solid track. Then we get I Remember the Sun. This is a bit disjointed. You've got 5 musicians doing different things. The drummer especially, he's about 12 beats above everyone. Then we get Slow Running on Soul, Train Running on Soul. Coal. Crap. About 3 bars in and I couldn't go on anymore. Okay then, coming in at number 9 is their 4th album from 1980, an album that I'd got, so I've had this a few years, Black Sea. This is quite rocky. One of their more rocky bands. They decided to make it more rocky because they could perform the tracks live without overdubs. First track, Respectable Street. Really good track. I've always liked this track. It's quite rocky, quite heavy in places. Really good, solid track. Then we get Generals and Majors. I love this track as well. I think the video, they're actually performing on a bouncy castle, if I remember right. It's quite a good track. Then we get a thing called Living Through Another Cuba. Oh, this is all over the place. I've never got on with that track. When I listened to this, just to have a recap, I remember putting that track on, and within 30 seconds I'd moved it on to the next track, Love at First Sight, because it's a pretty good track and I really like that one. Very solid. Then we get Rocket from a Bottle, another solid track. Nice guitar work on this one. Nice tones and effects, really, really good. No Language in Our Lungs, another guitar driven track, fantastic track. Towers of London again, another solid track. This is 5 minutes, and I think it's because it's more rocky. It does work. Really good track. Then we got Paper and Iron, Notes and Coins. It's okay in parts, but some of the vocal is just far too weird for me, and you can't understand the word that's being said. Then we get Burning with Optimism's Flames. This is just one of them non-inspiring filler tracks. Then we got my favourite track of all time by XTC, Sergeant Rock Is Gonna Help Me. I brought this on single. I liked it so much. I can't remember what was on the B side because I can't even find the single now, but I ended up buying this album, or when I could afford it, because it's got some really good songs on it. And then we've got the last track, Travellers in Nilion. It's a good track, but it's far too long. Again, you don't do long tracks if you can't. You lose interest in that one. Okay then, moving on. Coming in at number 8 is another album that I'd never heard. 1992's Nonsuch. I don't know why I've missed this one, because I think it's a really good album. I've only listened to it twice, and it's an album now that I've put on my iPod, so that's how much of an influence it's had on me. Really good. First track, this is super track, The Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead. Really good rocking track, really love it. Then My Bird Performs. Got some nice orchestral arrangements on this album. This has got some horns, very, very, very good. Then the third track, Dear Madam Barnum. This reminds me of the Hollies. So much like the Hollies. Really good track. I don't mind the Hollies. I grew up on the Hollies. So yeah, really good track. Humble Daisy. Another late 60s sounding track. Really, really good track. Then we get The Smartest Monkeys. Is okay. The Disappointed. Another good poppy track. It's got that 70s pop sound to it. Really, really good. Holly Upon Poppy. Another sounding track from the 70s and 60s. There's some really good tracks on this album. Crocodile. Quirky beat. It's okay. Rook. A very strange song. Really good arrangement though. Then we get Omnibus. Another great song. Strings arrangement. Horns. Really, really good track. Then I come across a track called That Wave. It's the worst track, and I didn't like it at all. Then the next track, Then She Appeared. God, this is great. Psychedelic. I love psychedelics. that late 60s sound. Absolutely amazing track. Then we get War Dance. This is quite proggy in places. I do like that sort of sound as well. Then we get Wrapped in Grey. Oh dear, I've got a bit of a backache today, so I do excuse me jiggling about. Yeah, Wrapped in Grey, another great song. Very solid. Then we get the Ugly Underneath. More of that psychedelic sound. Psychedelic sounds from the 60s brought to that what would be the 90s, so it is really, really good. Then we get a track called Bungalow. That's not too bad. Then we get Books Are Burning. Solid track. Great guitar solo in this. There's not many guitar solos on these albums, but this one is terrific. Okay then, coming in at number 7 is the album from 1999, released in February of that year, the 13th album, Apple Venus Volume 1. This is an interesting album. It relies heavily on strings, acoustic guitars, keyboards, and it was again going back to that Nonsuch album. It was got that orchestral feel to it. Again, I'd never heard this album and I fell in love with it straight away. There isn't a bad track on here at all. Rivers of Orchids, orchestral, but the style it's done in reminds me of Peter Gabriel, one of my favourite artists with Genesis and on his own. Really good track. It reminds me of the orchestral album that he done, Peter Gabriel. That's in that sort of elk. So if you like that, you're going to like that track. Next track, I'd Like That. Nice acoustic number this is. You don't get many of them on XTC, but really, really good. Easter Theatre. A great orchestral piece. Nice singing. It really is that this band was such good at doing different things. Then we get Nights in Shining Karma. This is a nice acoustic guitar in this, great track. Then Frivolous Tonight. Ooh, this is a mixture of Pink Floyd, Moody Blues, all rolled into one. Great track. Then we get Green Man, another really good track, my favourite on the album. It's more in the Peter Gabriel pop style that he did from, say, the early 80s, mid 80s. Really solid track. Then Your Dictionary. This is quite an acoustic track in places, very Beatles, the late part of their career around Sgt. Pepper's, the White Album. Really solid track, really good. Then we get a thing called Fruit Nut. It's weird as I like, but it's a bit of fun and it's very good. Then we get I Can't Own Her. It's orchestral, but to me it's a little bit dull. It doesn't do much. You think it's going to do something and it doesn't. Then we get a track called Harvest Festival. It sounds like, when it started up, I thought, oh, didn't it sound like Enya? But then when halfway through, you get, now if you can remember when you was at school, you'd have the school recorder band. There's a bit like that, and it just brought back them horrible memories where you're sitting in the assembly going, oh, that sounds like, you know. Didn't do much of it. And then the last balloon was very dreary. Okay, coming in at number 6 is the 9th album, 1986's Skylarking. This is again another great album. It's produced by Todd Rundgren. Apparently it's a loose concept album about non-specific, I can't say words today, what's up with me, cycles such as a day, a year, or seasons, or life. Really good album. Summer's Cauldron. It's a very strange song. It's got sitars in it, keyboards, but it's got some nice harmonies. Then we got Grass. Good, this is very psychedelic. More sitars. It's if you remember when the Beatles started putting sitars into their sound, very much like that. The Meeting Place, wow, this is hippie as you get. It's sitting round with flowers in your hair time, really good track. Then we get That's Really Super Girl. I don't like that at all. Awful song, awful lyrics, there's nothing good about it. Then we get Bally for a Rainy Day. Oh, it's another one of those Beatles. Well, just think what one it actually reminds me of. A Day in a Life. It's that sort of thing. Then we get 100 Umbrellas. It sort of carries on from A Bally for a Rainy Day. This reminds me so much of early ELO with them strings. Off their first couple of albums, that really deep, heavy cello sound. Really, really good track. Then we get Season Cycle. Love the keyboards in this. The harmonies. It's very 60s again. Very, very 60s, like a lot of the songs on this album. Then we get Earn Enough for Us. This is one of them great songs. Very 60s pop. Best on the album. Solid track. Then Big Day, another great track. Got that feel of that late 60s, early 70s to it. Another Satellite. This is so very Pink Floyd, Syd Barrett days. Terrific song. Then we get Mermaids Smiled. The melody's right. The singing's great. But the drums, they just don't fit round it. Doesn't do nothing for me. Then we get a track called The Man Who Sailed Around His Soul. This is a very progressive track. One way to describe it, it's Jethro Tull meets King Crimson. And you can't get any better than them two bands. So this track's got combinations of all their sort of styles. Terrific. You get the flute from Jethro Tull. You get the weirdness of King Crimson. And it just makes a very unique track. Then we got Dying. It's the weakest track, not my favourite. Then we get Sacrifice Bonfire, another great proggy track. Just can't get any better than that. Then we get a thing called Dear God, and it is Dear God. You got some kid singing at the beginning of it, awful. Okay, next one is quite a weird one. Coming in at number 5. Now this is something I didn't know about XTC. This album is Sonic Sunspot. But they actually recorded this under the name of the Dukes of Stratosphear. So it's the second album by the Dukes of Stratosphear, released in 1987, but it's always also counted as XTC's 10th album. So it's basically XTC, but they actually changed their names a bit. So they, Sir John Johns is Andy Partridge. The Red Curtain is Colin Moulding. Lord Cornelius Plum is Dave Gregory. And you've got E.I.E.I. Owen, which is actually Ian Gregory, who plays drums, and it's Dave Gregory's brother. But what an album. What an album. I'd never heard this album, obviously, because I didn't have that connection with the Dukes of Stratosphear to XTC. I've heard of the Dukes of Stratosphear, but I didn't realise it was XTC. But wow. This is another album I downloaded. They brought out 2, and it's all on one album. So I've now got that on my iPod, and I love it. Love it to bits. But I actually split it up into the 2 albums because I'm like that. But let's have a look at the tracks. Vanishing Girl. Oh, another great. This is a great 60s song. Sounds like the Hollies again. Terrific song. Love it to bits. Then a track called Have You Seen Jackie? Another great. This is great proggy. It's a mix of early Pink Floyd and King's Crimson, so you know what you're going to get. It's got all them great sounds that you got on the Source of the Secrets. It's got little bits that, you know, from the Court of the Crimson King. It's just everything that, if you like that sort of music, you're going to love these albums by the Dukes of Stratosphear. Then we get Little Lighthouse. This is a weird track, psychedelic as you get. Just think of them really early Pink Floyd tracks off the first album. You've got it. Then we get a track called You're a Good Man, Albert Brown, Curse of the Red Barrel. Syd Barrett, Eat Your Heart Out. The lyrics in this are so what Syd Barrett would have wrote. Terrific song, brilliant. Then we get Kaleidoscope. This track could have appeared on the Magical Mystery Tour. That's how good it is. It sounds Beatles. Terrific. They really got the sound right on that. Very, very good track. Next track, You're My Drug. Another of these poppy 1960 songs from, you know, about 66, 67. Wonderful. Then we get Shiny Cage. This is the best track on the album. It's very Kinks. Very, very Kinks. And it's another great band from the 60s, the Kinks. I just couldn't get enough of this album. I think these two are the albums I've played the most. I keep playing them because I just love them. Then we get Brainiac's Daughter. Another of these great songs that sound from the Beatles, the White Album sort of thing. Very psychedelic in places, brilliant. The Affiliated, another great song soaking up that late 60s era, bringing in all the sort of different styles from different bands, Moody Blues, King Crimson, Pink Floyd, The Move. It's got everything in there. It's terrific. Then we get Pale and Precious. This is probably the weakest track on the album, and it's still going in nowhere, and then all of a sudden you get the Beach Boys coming in, or that Beach Boys sound, so it wasn't too bad. Okay, moving on. Coming in at number 4 is their third album, released on the 17th of August 1997, Drums and Wires. Now, up until about 2 weeks ago, I would say this was my favourite XTC album. But it's amazing what happens in 2 weeks. It's now down at number 4. But it's still a great album. First track, of course, is the fantastic Making Plans for Nigel. Don't have to say too much about that. It's just a classic track. Then we get Helicopter. I love the drums in this. They still, by 1979, they still hadn't lost their post-punk sound. That's what I like about this album. It's very punky in places. Then we get Day In, Day Out. Another one of them punky sounding ones. The bass in this is terrific. Absolutely thumping. Then we get When You're Near Me, I Have Difficulty. This is a bit of a ska track. So they were experimenting down that line. If you like the Specials, you're not going to go too wrong. 10 Feet Tall. I would say this track sounds very much like Senses Working Overtime. You know, it's in that sort of vein. So they elaborated from this song and produced Senses Working Overtime. Then we get Roads Girdy the Globe. Very disco in places, but the guitar riff in this actually saves it from being a really awful track. Then we get Real by Real. This is another catchy post-punk track. Very, very good. The Millions. Again, this is one of them the first tracks that XTC did that was a bit different, bit off the wall, and it just flowed lovely. And you just, again, you know that distinctive sound. You know, they worked hard at that. Then we get The Way It Is, a solid track. XTC written all over it from the first. If you don't know the track, you know who it's done by. That's what I mean by solid on that one. Then we get The Outside World. Now this is rock and roll meets punk. Great. You got all the twiddly bits of the rock and roll guitar, and then you got the heaviness of the punk. It actually works. You know, it doesn't sound as if it would work, but it actually does. Then we get Scissor Man, another solid track. Pop rock track, lovely. Complicated Game. I love the tune, but I hate the vocals in that. Always have. So the vocals sound like they're 20 tones lower than the music. Okay then. Coming in number 3, another album that I'd never heard up until about 2 weeks ago. It's Wasp Star, Apple Venus Volume 2. Came out in 2000 on the 23rd of May. It's their 14th album, and at this stage it's their last because they were dissolved in 2006. But a solid album to go out on. Again, there's not a track on here that I don't like. Again, I play it a lot now because I think it's fantastic. Okay, the first track is Playground. This is probably the heaviest start to an XTC song. Really good track. Then we get Stupidly Happy. Great rocker this is, done in the style of the Rolling Stones. Terrific song. Another Life. This is a proper indie rock track. Nothing wrong with that. Solid as they come. My Brown Guitar, again, these tracks are just solid top to bottom. Then we get a thing called Boarded Up. This is raw track. This is plug in and go. It's literally guitar in, turn the keyboard on and play. Nothing else. Makes a great atmosphere, great vocal, great song. Then we get a track called I'm the Man That Murdered Love. Another great rocker, one of the best tracks on the album. Then we get We Are the Light. Great guitar work in this, and the drums sound really good in this. Then we get Standing Up for Joe. Now this is it's a great song, and the riff in between it sounds more like Genie. It's got that feel, but then it goes into its own thing, but it keeps coming back to that da 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 da. Really good. Then we get Wounded Horse. Again, this is some of the best guitar work done by XTC. Absolutely outstanding guitar work. Very underrated. Then we get You and the Clouds Will Still Be Beautiful. It's probably the weakest track on the album. It's not bad, but it's not the best. Then we get Church of Women. This is a nice melodic track. Nice riff, so very good. Then The Wheel and the Maypole, another solid track to end the album out, very 60s. Okay then, we're now into the top 2. It's amazing, the top 2 are albums that I'd never heard up until the last week. You know, I had to listen to them a couple of times, but the more I listen to it, the more I go, God, these are good. So this is their 1989 album, released on the 27th of February, Oranges and Lemons. And this has got to be one of the coolest covers I've seen in a long time. If I'd have had this cover done in my favourite covers, I think it'd have been in there. I just love this site, it's very psychedelic. Okay, I mean, because a lot of the music on this is actually like psychedelics, but it was made up to the time when they brought this out in 1989. So the first track, Garden of Earthly Delights. This is very psychedelic, absolutely wonderful. It's just straight off Piper's Gate of Dawn, and so it is terrific. Then we get The Mayor of Simpletown. Nice track, great harmonies. Then we get King for a Day. Great track. Very big country in places, this is. Very big country. That's what, when I first heard it, I thought, ooh, who copied who? Then we get Here Comes President Kill again. Oh, another great psychedelic track. Think of the Sauce Full of Secrets, and you got this, it's terrific. Then we get The Lovin', great guitar work, very Beatles sounding. You just can't get any better than that. Poor Skeleton steps out. Love the guitar work on this. The sound effects are incredible. It is, it's just like listening to stuff off the very first albums of Pink Floyd. If you like that, you'll love this. And it's got that, also that space rock feel that you got on the UFO album, first two UFO albums, terrific. Then One in a Millions, this is very proggy. Again, I think it's more space rock as well, so it's another terrific track. Then we get Scarecrow People. I'd say this is a masterpiece of work from XTC. They just combined all the different sort of genre sounds, from progressive rock to rock, space rock, pop, and they put it all in one track. It's absolutely brilliant. Then we get Merely a Man. It's got the best drums on this, without a doubt. Very psychedelic. We've got psychedelic rock. Unbelievable track. Then we get Cynical Days. That is a nice track. It's got some muted trumpet on here that adds another layer to this superb song. And then we get a track that I do find hard to listen to, Across the Ante. It should actually be called Across the Dung Heap. It's not very good at all. Then we get Hold Me Daddy. Nice track, good riff. Good riff. It's alright, I've got both my dogs hovering around me. I know what they want and they're just going to have to wait. Yeah, another great track. Good riff on this. Nice guitar work, although on that. Then we get Pink Thing. This has got, again, one of them solid tracks that's got that 60s feel. Well, you can tell the different influences from the Kinks, the Faces, the Small Faces. You can tell where the guys, what they like listening to, I think. And I think these psychedelia sort of albums are their best ones. Then we get Miniature Sun, another solid track. And the last track, Chalk Hills and Children. This is very mellow, proggy, and got some of the nice harmonies that XTC did. I do like that album, absolutely top draw. So my number one, I don't know if to call this my XTC or the Dukes of Stratosphear, because it's 25 o'clock. Came out on April Fool's Day 1985. It's the first album they put out as the Dukes of Stratosphear, but it is also the 8th album by XTC. I love this album. It's everything that you want from a psychedelic progressive rock album. It could have come out in 1969, and to me this is it is a classic, an underrated classic. If you haven't got this, get it, because if you like Pink Floyd in the beginning, you'll love this, because there's so much elements of them first two Pink Floyd albums on this. It's not many tracks, but it is absolutely brilliant. The opening track, 25 o'clock. Oh God. You get clocks, alarms, just like time. And then you think, what can they do next? And they just go into something that's straight off Piper's Gate of Dawn. Blows you away. Then we get Bike Ride to the Moon. It's even the title of it sounds Pink Floyd, doesn't it? Very psychedelic track, fantastic effects and guitars and lyrics. It is very cleverly done. I don't know if they're trying to be Pink Floyd but whatever it is, it damn well works because it's fantastic. Then we get My Love Explodes. More great psychedelic effects on this. Lots of whoops and woos and excellent keyboards and great drums. And then we get a track called What in the World. Again, this is just sauce full of secrets, really. It's got all them silly effects, great guitar work. I mean, after this album, I actually put on the sort of Sauce Full of Secrets, and the comparison between them is unbelievable. Then we get You Gold Dress. This actually's got a bit of the Who to it, you know, Baba O'Reilly, that sort of sound, great. Then the last track, another brilliant track, The Mole from the Ministry. It's got everything. Again, psychedelia, Beatles, Jethro Tull, you name it. Yes, it's all been packed into one track. 5 minute 50 of brilliance. Well, all I can say is to the person that suggested to me to, will you rank XTC, thank you, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have this fantastic album that I've got at number 1. It was a great way to start the rebrand of RTO, because this comes right out what it's all about, obscure. They are very obscure, is an XTC, but I think they're a bit of a Marmite band. You either like them or you don't, and I like them. Okay, that's we'll be back later with a very good show about a new album, but more about that when we go on to that. So for now, I will say goodbye from Iain from RTO, and don't forget to subscribe. Go and look at our Facebook page. There's a link now at the top of the header where you'll get on there and you'll meet my new promotions person. She's looking after that, Michelle. She'll answer any questions, and she'll just pass anything on to me. But we'll see you all soon, and don't forget Thursday 7 o'clock a live stream where we will be talking about what's coming up, and we're going to be talking about gigs, because a lot of us we've missed gigs. I think we'll have a bit of a discussion about our favourite gigs that we've been to, and that includes pub gigs, little gigs, big gigs, any gigs that have really stood out for you. So don't forget, 7 o'clock Thursday night. Be there or be square. Bye for now.